On evolution IAS, we have been doing most important current affairs series for the UPSC Prelims 2020. In that series, we have already completed 13 lectures. This is our 14th lecture. When we met in the last lecture, we were doing the April month economy current affairs. Previously also, I think 1 or 2 lectures were dedicated to April month economy only. In the last lecture, we did these 4 topics and I said that 4 topics only are remaining. With these 4 topics, we will be finishing our April month economy current affairs. What are these 4 topics? First topic is a special liquidity facility for mutual funds. This a special liquidity facility of rupees almost 50,000 crore rupees is coming by RBI. This is a special window, a special facility, a special fund for mutual funds. Mutual funds need a revival in India because they are facing liquidity crunch. They do not have money. So this is our first topic. Second topic is report on Industrial Relations Code. Indian government is trying to amalgamate 3 laws related to industries and labor, and that will come as Industrial Relations Code. Over that a report has come. We will come to know what is that. This is for ease of doing business. Third topic is negative oil prices. Because of COVID lockdown, a particular type of oil has gone in negative pricing. Not positive, okay, negative pricing. So we will understand, does it impact India or not? And the fourth topic will be WTO Peace Clause. What is that? India is providing agricultural subsidy more than expected, and now this topic will go into WTO Peace Clause related to agriculture, related to agreement on agriculture. We will understand everything. So our first topic is a special liquidity facility for mutual funds. In short, we can call it SLF for mutual fund, SLF-MF. So the news is that RBI has recently announced a special liquidity window. Liquidity window means giving money, okay, giving money on the loan. And the loan amount is, it is a corpus of rupees 50,000 crore total, and the purpose is to bail out mutual fund sector, and mutual fund sector is recently hit by a crisis, and the crisis is liquidity crunch. This is a debt fund segment, okay. This mutual fund sector is a debt fund segment. It takes debt from somewhere and the investment is done by mutual fund, so that is debt fund segment. So first of all, understand that how does a mutual fund work. In mutual fund, what happens that mutual fund investing company will be doing investment in various corporations, various type of investments, and the people will be giving money to that. So obviously this is a high risk, high return segment. So you remember the ad saying that mutual funds are subject to market risk and operations. So that is why there is high risk involved, but there is high gain also involved. Currently, the risk has become very high because the sectors where mutual fund was investing, those infrastructure sectors, those investment sectors, everything has seen a slowdown. Projects are not getting completed. So the mutual funds got the debt from banks, okay. They got loan from banks for the investment in various corporations, companies and infrastructure projects. But those projects, corporations and everything is slowing down. There are defaults also by those companies. So mutual fund is not getting the benefit, is not getting the returns over their investment, but they had taken the loans from the bank. So now they are not getting the money from the banks also. Banks are not providing the money. Banks are saying that no, you are running the losses. So how do we provide the extra money? Now they are not getting the extra money and the projects are also not giving them return. So mutual funds are stuck down. There is liquidity crunch. So that is why RBI said that no, we cannot deal with this situation without providing them extra liquidity. So for that RBI has come with this rupees 50,000 crore. It is kind of a bailout, okay. This is kind of a bailout. In fact, a recent news came in that Franklin Templeton Mutual Fund is a company, and that company had 6 credit risk funds or 6 mutual funds, and all of them have been closed because of losses. So what is the mechanism? Will RBI will be providing the loan amount directly to the mutual funds? No. RBI doesn't invest in the mutual fund, okay. RBI is a bank. RBI is a central bank, okay. RBI is bankers bank. So RBI will do what? RBI will provide this 50,000 crore rupees to the banks, and those banks will be then providing loans to the mutual fund, and then mutual funds will have some liquidity and they can do the new investment, a very judicious investment, and then they can earn the extra money, and that is how their liquidity crisis and everything will be sorted out. So what is the mechanism? Under this special liquidity facility for mutual funds or SLF-MF, RBI will conduct repo operations. RBI gives the banks on repo rate some amount of money. So this particular repo operation will open up for only 90 days, okay, and there will be fixed repo rate for that. Now it will be on demand, anytime, open ended, anytime banks can go, and this is called on tap. Anytime you press the button and get the money. But how much? Overall the window is only 50,000 crore. So what is the process? First come first serve basis. Banks can submit their bids, and the date was actually May 11 2020. That was the deadline. And till what time they can do the submission, till what time they can do the on tap facility on demand? By May 11 2020. And suppose before that date this 50,000 is exhausted, so that time only this process will be stopped up to the utilization of the allocated amount 50,000 crore or May 11 2020. Whichever is earlier, this program will be closed for the banks. So now suppose the condition: banks take money from RBI and do not give it to mutual funds and invest it somewhere else. So the problem will not be sorted. So for that RBI has created a condition. RBI has said that this SLF-MF money will only be used exclusively by banks for meeting the liquidity requirement of mutual funds only. They can provide this money, they can provide this loan amount to mutual fund companies only. Remember that. So banks will be providing this money to mutual funds for free? No. What happens? I already told you that mutual funds are investing some money in different companies, corporations, and different kind of infrastructure projects. So for that, these mutual funds have investment grade corporate bonds, commercial papers, debentures, certificate of deposits. These things are held by mutual funds. These things, corporate bonds, commercial papers, debentures, and certificate of deposit, will be used as collateral by mutual funds for getting money from banks, which money was provided by RBI to banks 50,000 crore through the special liquidity facility for mutual funds project. So that is why written, banks can extend the loans to mutual funds and undertake the outright purchase of what? Investment grade corporate bond, commercial paper, debenture, certificate of deposit. Those are held by mutual funds. So nothing is for free. No free food here. Okay. So why this facility by RBI? It all first of all started with IL&FS crisis. Okay. When IL&FS crisis happened, many of the companies had mutual funds investment in IL&FS infrastructure company, but their money got stuck. And after that, this COVID-19 situation. This COVID-19 situation has created heightened volatility situation in corporate market. Volatility means no one knows, uncertainty. And that creates liquidity strains or liquidity crunch on mutual funds. Already told you about this closure of 6 debt schemes of Franklin Templeton Company. And after that closure of 6 debt schemes, there is contagious effect. Other mutual fund companies are also bearing the heat. So is the situation very bad in every mutual fund sector? No. खास करके high risk debt segment are at this stage are very much stressed. When there is high risk debt fund segment of mutual fund, there is high risk and there is high slowdown, high losses, but the large industry remains liquid only. Okay, so the problem is not very precarious. That's we want to say here. Some high risk debt funds are in very precarious situation, and probably banks will be investing in those high risk debt funds only. In larger industry, the situation is mostly liquid, not a big problem. So impact will be good, because recently what we have seen is that our debt segment has witnessed outflows of rupees 1.9 lakh crore in the months of March. The investment coming from outside that has flown away, and that amount is 1.9 lakh crore, 1.94 lakh crore. So at least 50,000 crore rupees will help in to some extent. So what are the features of this offer? The support these banks are extending to mutual funds under SLF-MF scheme, that will be exempted from banks' capital market exposure limits. So banks can do their exposure in capital market other than the normal exposure they have in the capital market. Rupees 50,000 crore will not be counted in that exposure limit, and that is how the capital market will be helped. But remember that this will not be counted as priority sector target or sub targets. Priority sector lending will be separately done by banks, that will not be affected. So this opportunity by banks will not be misutilized or misused. Our next topic is report on Industrial Relations Code. So for that, first of all, study about what is Industrial Relations Code. This Industrial Relation Code is an amalgamation. We have Trade Unions Act 1926, we have Industrial Employment Act 1946, and we have Industrial Disputes Act 1947. All these three acts will be amalgamated together and a new code will come, that is Industrial Relations Code. And over that code, the Parliament had this bill and all. Over that code, there was this Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labour, and that Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labour has suggested some amendments in the Industrial Relations Code developed by the government. Before understanding the new suggestion, the new report, we first understand what is Industrial Relations Code that came in 2019. First of all, I told you which three laws are being amalgamated, that is one thing. And this Industrial Relation Code has many things. It has definition of worker. Okay, who is worker, what is industry, and what is a strike. But all these definitions are now amended. Okay. Also, with the changing time, we have new definition of employee and worker, and these two things, employee and worker definition are separated. Why do we do that? Because with changing times, we need hiring for a short period also, not permanent employment. That will bring ease of doing business. So for that, government has come with fixed term employment. Okay, fixed term employment, a kind of contract employment only. Fixed term, not permanent, not Ajivan Kal, okay, not lifelong. So that fixed term employment is also included as a category of employment in classification of workers. This will bring ease of doing business. How? This is a very negative thing, but fixed term employment means once the work is over, the company will expel you, and that is why the ease of doing business will come. That is how the competitiveness in the market will come. So I told you that this also amalgamates the Industrial Disputes Act. For Industrial Disputes Act, whenever a dispute happens, the new Industrial Relations Code says that trade unions will be recognized as sole negotiating union if it has support of 75% of more workers. See, a trade union is a union, okay, made by the workers. If this trade union is having the support of 75% or more workers of the company, that trade union will be solely responsible for negotiating union disputes. In company's dispute, this will be the negotiating unit only if it is having 75% or more workers as their supporters. And those workers should be on the muster roll of an establishment. That means that they should be on the working platform of the establishment. But what will happen when a particular trade union is not having the support of 75% people or workers? In that case, when a trade union is not having, or any trade union is not having 75% support of the workers, a negotiating council will be set up for the negotiation. And if a registered trade union is present, disputes of that registered trade unions, those disputes are also included within the jurisdiction of Industrial Tribunal. Industrial Tribunal, now these disputes will not be decided by appeal. Disputes will not be decided by multiple bodies. Only and only Industrial Tribunals now will work as adjudicating bodies to decide on appeals. That means we are removing the duplications, we are removing the multiple bodies, and only Industrial Tribunal will be responsible for hearing the appeals. So ease of doing business, so we have to discourage lockout in an establishment and a strike in an establishment. What is the difference between a strike and lockout? I told you in the last lecture. Companies will be required to provide a notice, and that notice period will be at least 14 days. So you have to provide 14 days notice period before going for a strike or lockout in any establishment. There is one thing very important, threshold of workers for retrenchment. What is that? Removing a worker from the company, there is threshold. What is that threshold? That threshold means if a company wants to remove an employee, a large number of employees, that company or establishment has to take permission from the government, and that minimum number is 100. Below 100, you can go for the worker retrenchment. But if you are having number of employees more than 100 in factory, plantation and mine sector, you have to go for the government's approval. That is the threshold for workers retrenchment. That is 100, okay? But this Industrial Relation Code provides some flexibility that company can reduce or increase the threshold depending on this situation. There are some provisions, we need not know that. Also rescaling fund. So if you are going for retrenchment, so you must be giving the reason that employee is not suited, employee is not having the skills. So for that employee, it is proposed that we will have contribution from industrial establishment and we will provide re-scaling of that employee who has been retrenched, and that fund will be known as re-scaling fund. That will be used for the training of retrenched employees. So now, once we have understood the Industrial Relations Code that came in 2019, now we can study the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Labor suggestions on this Industrial Relations Code. First of all, amalgamation of 3 acts, I already told you. So what are the suggestions made by this Parliamentary Committee on Labor? First term is very vague. First statement is very vague. It said that please formalize and make a conducive industrial relation systems and strengthen the various provisions proposed in this code. So this is like a Disha Nirdesh direction. This Industrial Relations Code also says a very good thing, and for some people it can be very bad thing also for the employee. It says that suppose a natural calamity happens. In that situation, this will be very unjustifiable that company is not doing any production. Because of natural calamity, company is facing some situation. Still payment of wages to the workers is provided. So this act says that in case of natural calamity, payment of wages to workers until the re-establishment of the industry may be unjustifiable. First let the company re-establish itself after the calamities. Only then it can provide the wages to the laborers, because laborers are not doing any work. Natural calamity has happened and the establishment is not working. So why do we provide them wages to the workers? So that is unjustifiable. Where will the company get the money for this wages? So this will bring ease of doing business. Okay. It also proposes that a sermon only, mentorship only, that please create a separate and exclusive chapter that should be created for outlining the rights of both employees and employer have rights, and that should be imbibed in a separate and exclusive chapter in this Industrial Relation Code. No very good suggestions, only the vague things. Also it says that you have separated the worker and employee definition, right? So please consolidate that, merge the definition of worker and employee, because if you don't do that, supervisors, managers, these people will not find a place in the list. So please merge this worker employee definition so that supervisor, manager, these terms can also find a place in the Industrial Relation Code. Main purpose is that this Industrial Relation Code allows companies to hire workers on fixed term contract of any duration. Hire and fire policy will be provided by this Industrial Relation Code. The purpose is ease of doing business. I already told you that this threshold on the worker count at 100 for prior government approval before retrenchment, that threshold is retained. Previously also it was 100 only. In the code also it is 100 only. But if a company wants to change this threshold, that can be done by notification. So any time that threshold can be increased or decreased by notification. That notification will come by government. Okay. So we were talking about the disputes also. This act says that, this code says that there will be a 2-member tribunal. 2-member tribunal in place of 1 member. Previously we had only 1-member tribunal. Now it says that no, separately created 2-member tribunal also, where your important cases will be adjudicated jointly by 2 members, and not important cases that will be taken care of by a single member tribunal only. So this will lead to a speedy disposal of cases. You understand that previously the tribunal for settling disputes had only 1 member. Now it says that keep the 1-member tribunal, but also create a 2-member tribunal. This 2-member tribunal will deal with very important cases, and this 1-member tribunal will deal with all the remaining cases which are not very important. That means 2 tribunals now. 1 tribunal is having 1 member as previously, and 1 tribunal is having 2 members. And whenever a penalty or fine is involved in a dispute, government officer will be responsible for the adjudication according to this code. I already told you there is a feature of recognition of negotiation union. Negotiation union what? Trade union only having the support of 75% or more workers on the rolls of an establishment or muster roll. That trade union can work as negotiating union. And if a company is not having, if a trade union is not having the support of 75% workers, then a council will be created for the adjudication of disputes. So we already told you that fixed term contract of any duration. So what does that mean? Does that mean retrenchment? No, retrenchment is after 100 threshold and everything. That is completely different thing. This fixed term contract of any duration means that you can hire and fire anytime. That will not lead to the dispute of retrenchment. Under the code, termination of service of a worker on completion of a tenure in a fixed term employment will not be considered as retrenchment. So what will be considered as retrenchment? Only a permanent employee or worker not coming on the fixed term basis, not coming on the contract, working permanently in the company. If that employee is fired, that employee is given the pink slip, that will be counted as retrenchment. And the last thing again, reskilling fund for the training of retrenched employees. That reskilling fund will provide retrenched employees payment of 15 days wages from the fund within 45 days of the retrenchment. Our next topic is very interesting, that is negative oil prices. Let's come to USA. USA has a best quality of crude oil in the world, that is West Texas Intermediate oil. Okay, in that oil there is a reduction of pricing, and the price has fallen to $40.32 per barrel, but that is minus $40.32. What does that mean? This means that seller of that crude oil will be paying the buyer $40, okay, $40 for each barrel that is bought. Okay, you purchase my barrel of oil, crude oil, and if you purchase my oil, I will be providing you $40. So that is negative oil pricing that is happening in West Texas Intermediate, and surprisingly that is the best quality of crude oil in the world. Previously, we had this lowest pricing of oil situation immediately after World War II. Now we have this situation, and surprisingly, this is the lowest crude oil price ever recorded, even lower than World War II situation, because there was already economic slowdown in the world, and COVID-19 situation has created a problem that oil demand is very, very less, and that is why we are seeing negative oil prices. So now we need to understand how this oil pricing is done. Generally, you have this OPEC, Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. Where is the headquarter? Can you comment below in section? So, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, it is a oligarchy kind of thing, okay? There are various countries, but not all countries. So, various countries producing oil are there. They sit in a meeting and decide that how much oil we will be producing, at what cost we will be selling this oil. But the organization is not very intact. Every country wants their own benefit. Every country wants to produce extra oil, and the prices are mostly going there out of control from them. So this is a cartel, okay, cartel or oligarchy. Many people, many countries are involved, but not all of them. That cartel fixes the prices of oil, but in a favorable band, okay, in a favorable band. So various countries can have a differing oil prices, but the band will be decided by this Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. This is led by Saudi Arabia. Why? Saudi Arabia is the largest exporter of crude oil in the world. Single-handedly, Saudi Arabia, out of the global demand, exports 10% of the crude oil. So whenever this OPEC wants that oil prices should go down, they will produce extra oil, okay? When they want that oil prices should be more, that should be costly, they will reduce the production of the oil. So you can see that this oil pricing in the global world, it is not much market oriented, not competition oriented, okay, not competitive market. This is a cartel, and it is almost depending on their partnership, that how close they are, how much understanding they have. Suppose Saudi Arabia says that let's reduce the oil prices and produce more, and Russia says that no, that should be costly, so I will not produce more. Anyway, Russia probably is not in OPEC. Can you comment that which countries are in oil, this organization for petroleum exporting countries? How many countries, which countries, and also the headquarter? If you comment below, I will be very happy. So cutting oil production or completely shutting down is not very easy anyway. So you want to cut the oil production and increase the prices, but this is not possible. Otherwise USA would have done that, right? they are facing the negative oil prices, why did not they reduce the production itself and made it very costly? Because this is very costly itself. The process of cutting oil production or completely shutting down an oil producing well from where the oil is coming, very difficult decision, because restarting it or increasing or decreasing its production from the normal level is itself very costly and very complicated process. So that's why they can't go for this very generally, very occasionally. Moreover, there is a problem. If a country cuts production, that company will lose some market share, because that company's or that country's oil will become very costly, and suppose other countries are not reducing the prices, so the market will go to them. So Russia is not in OPEC. Okay, so OPEC says that, OPEC says that, Russia, please understand us, we will do the manipulation and you be with us. So Russia and OPEC came together and that became OPEC plus. So they decided that okay, together we will fix the global oil prices and supply, because Russia also has very huge level of oil production and the OPEC so many countries producing oil. So they came to understanding that let's not compete among ourselves, let's join, do the partnership, Russia and OPEC, and make OPEC plus and control the global oil prices and supply. But that did not work. Okay, still we are seeing the price fall. Why? First of all, Saudi Arabia and Russia disagreed over the production cuts. Russia says that cut this amount, Saudi Arabia says that no, cut this amount. So there was disagreement. This did not work very well. Second reason for fall in prices is that crude oil prices was already falling because of the economic slowdown in the global world. But recently this global lockdown, vehicle rationalization, and the air transport also has decreased. International flights are not happening. So that has reduced the oil demand. Higher supply, lower demand leads to price fall. Also there is supply demand mismatch that results in exhausted storage capacities. Now we need to understand, will this impact India? If in USA there is negative pricing of oil, so are we going to get extra money from USA? No, there is no direct impact of India, because Indian crude oil basket, that means the oil coming in India from different countries, it does not have a component of West Texas intermediate oil. India has only Brent oil and oil from some Gulf countries. Can you tell me in the comment section that is what is Brent oil? But there will be some impact. This will not directly impact India because Indian oil basket is not having WTI, but there will be indirect impact, right? If in USA the oil is becoming very cheap, oil is becoming very weak, the pricing is becoming very weak, that will reflect on other countries' oil also. So the Brent crude oil pricing will also be affected. Gulf countries oil pricing will also be affected, because oil is traded globally, and so it will have indirect impacts. Lower prices can be beneficial for India in two ways. Obviously, the lower prices will be beneficial only for individuals. If the government passes on the lower prices to the consumers directly, the individual consumption will be boosted. People will get oil at 5 rupees per liter maybe. Okay, that will bring economic recovery. People will buy cars because oil is cheap. So that will lead to transformation or resurrection in automobile sector, which is seeing the problem recently. For government, what can be the benefit? Suppose oil which was coming at 100 rupees, take an example, oil which was coming at 100 rupees, now that oil has reduced by suppose 50% to 50 rupees, and government says that previously we were providing you oil at 70 rupees, now also we will be providing you oil at 70 rupees. So that extra 20 rupees, 70 minus 50, that will go to government as excise duty. So government will benefit, that will boost the government revenue. So that is what it is being said here. For governments, if both the central and the state government decide to levy higher taxes on cheaper oil, it can boost the government revenue, because government is getting the oil in cheap, okay, and providing to the public at the same price. So extra money will be given to government, higher taxes on oil, excise duty, that will lead to boost in government revenues and recovery in our economy. Next topic is WTO Peace Clause. News is that India has invoked this peace clause. Why? Because India has exceeded the limits. What kind of limits? India told to the WTO that value of its rice production was $43.67 billion, okay, in 2018-19, and in that value, India gave subsidies of $5 billion. So that subsidy becomes 11.46 of the value of production. So this much subsidy is generally not allowed by the WTO. The maximum subsidy you can give on agriculture, that is 10% for the developing country. So India, being a developing country, was allowed only 11.46%. And this 10% ceiling for the subsidies comes by agreement on agriculture. I will tell you about this agreement on agriculture that came by WTO. So this pegging was done that 10% subsidies for the developing countries they can provide to agriculture, but India has provided 11.46% subsidy. So the now action can come on India by the WTO. So the India has done a very good thing. India has invoked a peace clause of WTO. The peace clause of WTO says that if a country, if the need be for the not commercial purposes, for removing poverty and hunger, if a country wants, that can breach the limit, we will hear it. So India has done that, and India is surprisingly the first country ever to invoke the peace clause for providing extra subsidy. India has went to WTO itself and has says that please invoke the peace clause for us. We have provided extra subsidy, but this is for the need of our countrymen for reducing poverty and hunger. We are not doing it for export or commercial purposes. So what is agreement on agriculture? If the agreement of agriculture says that 10% will be the maximum subsidy for developing country on agriculture, so somehow this deals with the trade distorting practices, that no, maximum subsidy this much only. If you give subsidy beyond that, that will lead to breach of agreement on agriculture. So agreement on agriculture represents trade distorting domestic support measures, that is subsidy only. These supports are subject to limits and minimal supports are allowed. That minimal support is 10%. Can you do the extra work and tell me in the comment section when did this agreement on agriculture in WTO come? Which round of talks of WTO produced this agreement on agriculture? So are we just going to this WTO and saying that please invoke the peace clause? No, there are some provisions, right? India has said that we are trying to use the peace clause because we have a reason. First of all, the government is not undertaking any export of this and not doing any commercial profiting for public stockholding. We are doing this to meet our domestic food security. Food security, that means hunger and poverty needs of the India's poor and vulnerable population. So please invoke the peace clause and allow us to give 11.46% subsidy on agriculture beyond 10% which was allowed by agreement on agriculture, because this is not for exports, not for commercial purposes. We are just feeding our people. So here is this very beautiful infographic. Ceiling breach has happened, okay? First country is India to invoke peace clause of the WTO. See, this was the amount 2018-19 support for rice, and it crosses 10% value of production threshold. So what this situation will lead to? India has made an application that please invoke the peace clause. So now the WTO will discuss it. WTO members will discuss it whether India is right or wrong. If they think that, WTO members think that they are assured of this compliance of peace clause, no legal action will be taken. So India says that there is no trade distortion. According to the agreement on agriculture, there should not be any trade distortion by subsidy. So India says that we are not doing any trade distortion. We are not giving any adverse impact on other nations' food security. Okay, this is related to our thing only, our poor people only. This is not going to impact other nations' food security issues. India's food security programs we should know now. Minimum support price, here we are giving the subsidy. Public distribution system, here we are giving the subsidy. Also we have National Food Security Act 2013, that is also by giving subsidy to the poor for your grains and pulses and everything. So let us end our lecture here. Before that, let's discuss peace clause. Peace clause is for protecting a developing country's food procurement programs. I told you 3 food security programs of India. So for protecting a developing country's food procurement program, we have a peace clause in WTO. And if a country surpasses this subsidy limit ceiling set by agreement on agriculture, that country can go to WTO under the peace clause. And if WTO thinks that no, the country has done the right thing, has fed the poor people, and this does not impact any other country, this does not impact the trade so negatively, distort the trade, so there will be no action taken by the WTO against this country. So that is all for today. When we meet in the next lecture, that will be our 15th class, and we will study the current affairs related to economy of the month of May 2020. Thank you.